Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe today to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content we have planned for the 70th edition of the US Nationals, as well as we're in the midst right now of our peak giveaway contest, so if you want to sign up for that, be sure to check out the community page so that way you can click the link and sign up for your chance to win one of the 3 goodie bags that Peak has given to us for the event. And without further ado, let's get into the video. In Greek mythology, there lives the cautionary tale of Icarus. The story goes that Icarus' father Daedalus helped Theseus kill the Minotaur and escape the labyrinth. This angered King Minos, who imprisoned Daedalus and his son in a tower far above the palace in Knossos. Icarus was adventurous, wanting to see the world, and became restless after being stuck in a tower. Daedalus soon began plotting their way to escape. Having been an inventor, he created wings made of feathers glued with wax for Icarus and himself. Daedalus planned their escape by flying over the palace and leaving. Daedalus would teach his son how to fly, but warned Icarus not to fly too close to the sun as it would cause the wax to melt. As they escaped Knossos, Icarus, fueled by adrenaline and eagerness, forgot his father's warnings and began to fly higher to get a better view, causing the wax to melt, leaving Icarus to fall to the harsh ocean waters down below where he would drown. The fall of Icarus is seen as one of the most tragic characters in Greek mythology, and is used as a warning whether it's being blinded by eagerness, greed, or ambitions to not get carried away, or you too can meet the same fate. In the sports world, this can be equated to the mythical Game 7, the sudden-death matchup between the 2 best teams a league has to offer, meeting up one final time to decide that year's champion. It is a moment Hollywood writers dream of and league organizers salivate over. The 2016 World Series, the 1998 NBA Eastern Conference Finals, and the 2009 Stanley Cup Finals, just to name a few, are moments in sports that transcend time and people still talk about decades later. In motorsports, this is no different. When a championship plays out naturally, there's a moment where it feels like the world stops. There might be seasons that follow where the championship is decided early and those remaining races may not feel as important. But it makes those rare championship fights more iconic because you're aware that it's a rarity to see. Many fans understood this and embraced it, but sadly for those in charge, they couldn't help but see the success other sports had with their postseasons and wanted to share of that Game 7 magic and not heeding the warnings shared by Tales of Past. The first instance of this would be seen following the 2003 NASCAR Cup Series season. Matt Kenseth won the title with an astonishing average finish of 10.3, but only having one race to show for it back at the 3rd race of the season in Las Vegas. To many, that showcased how consistent Matt Kenseth and the Killer Bees were throughout the year. But some people felt that it showed a glaring hole in the old points format that decided their championship for decades and didn't reward those who won more races, like Ryan Newman, who won 8 races in 2003 but finished 6th in points due to 7 finishes 37th or below. And with a new face in Brian France taking the reins from his father Bill France Jr., what a better way to make your name than to shake the foundation on which NASCAR stood.
Well, of all the changes that are coming to NASCAR this year, perhaps the most sweeping and major change is the 2610 Chase for the Championship. It's a different way to crown a champ by creating a playoff system. Now, here are the basic points. After 26 of the 36 races, anyone in the top 10 or 400 points behind the leader will enter the chase. So there could be more than 10 drivers involved. The drivers who are involved will be assigned a new point total. The leader gets 5,050 points, the next guy 5,045, and so on down the line. You get that many different opinions about the chase for the championship.
Well, it's the same old thing. Change is always difficult, but you've got to consider what we're up against. It's not other racing teams. We're up against the National Football League, and they've got to come up with a system that gives them a chance to really compete. And I think we got to give this thing a chance. 5,000 points seems like an awful lot. I can't add up that many points, but the idea behind it, the premise, I think is right.
Titled The Chase for the Cup Series points would reset the points for the top 10 in the standings after the first 26 races of the season. Those drivers would battle it out to decide the championship over the final 10 races of the season. The idea behind the chase was to help boost fan interest and TV ratings during the latter half of the season when NASCAR starts visiting tracks for a second time. As soon as the announcement came out, drivers were quick to voice their opposition to the new chase format. Matt Kenseth, who many believed was the catalyst for the new format, felt drivers were going to be discouraged when it came to taking risks for the win, opting to get a good finish to ensure they were top 10 in points. Michael Waltrip felt the new system would encourage the people who were not points racing, but it also makes it important to race aggressively every lap because of how the sport and the equipment has grown. Also disagreeing with the notion that NASCAR's new chase wasn't a playoff by calling it playoffs on steroids. Midway through the season, some drivers still had harsh criticisms about the new format. Jimmy Johnson said after Sonoma that while it would make for great television, he didn't think it followed what the sport was about. Terry Labonte questioned how much media coverage the drivers not competing in the chase received during the final 10 races. All the media coverage, all the TV coverage is going to be on those 10 teams, and the last time I looked, it takes more than 10 cars to make it work. Even fans found themselves in an online war over the new format. The week following the announcement, Fox Sports posted an article with fans voicing their opinions. I think the new point system will ruin the sport. We're not like football, basketball, etc. We are NASCAR, not followers. I am totally with UW there. I hope that the fan base doesn't decrease due to the stupidity of the new system. If NASCAR wants to have a 10-race playoff at the end of the year, why not just shorten the entire schedule down to 10 races and limit the field somewhere between 10 and 20 cars? Saves a lot of time and money that way. While they're just at it, just rename the series the North American Formula One Series and be done with it. I have been watching NASCAR racing since 1979. Like countless other fans, I have seen a lot of changes, usually with a lot of skepticism, only to prove them later on. I think this is one of those situations. It seems a bit radical at first, but maybe we'll get these teams and drivers racing to win instead of playing it safe and just settling on consistent top 10 finishes. I feel like I found out that my wife has been cheating on me. The idea of a playoff system in NASCAR isn't just a bad idea, it is idiotic. The drivers don't want it, the fans don't want it, it seems like only NASCAR brass want it. The system works as it is. The numbers for NASCAR have been improving every year. Why alienate your fan base with a kooky plan like this? Pepto isn't going to help the stomachache I'm going to have all year. By the end of 2004, the goal of the chase format proved to be true in its debut outing. TV ratings skyrocketed as the season finale at Homestead alone had an average viewership of 6.8 million people compared to the 2.9 million that watched in 2003. And the final 10 chase races were seen by an average of 7.3 million viewers as well. The points proved to work too. Matt Kenseth's 90-point lead that secured him a Cup Series Championship was now the gap 2004 champion Kurt Busch had the 5th place Mark Martin entering the season finale. The same followed for 2005, which is to this day the year when NASCAR's golden era of mainstream attention truly peaked. Fox reported that they averaged 9.6 million viewers across the first 16 races of the season, boasting that it's the first major sports TV package to post a regular season household rating since Monday Night Football back in 1981. NBC saw a similar success for the second half of the year, having an average TV viewer rating of 4.6, their best since the broadcasting deal started in 2001, meaning that 4.6% Americans with TVs were watching the final half of the Cup Series season and saw Tony Stewart capture his second Cup Series championship. But while the viewership was at an all-time high, the signal of the turning point in their popularity began to show as the peak of the finale at Homestead was 7.2 million, the same number as what the average viewership for that race was a year ago. Over in the drag racing world, the NHRA was seeing a similar championship battle slump. Outside of the 2001 season, the Top Fuel Championship had been decided before the tour rolled into its season finale in Pomona. In Funny Car, they would routinely see a championship battle come down to the final rounds, but it didn't stop John Force from dominating the past decade, winning 13 of the last 16 Funny Car championships, including a 10-year streak from 1993 to 2002. In Pro Stock, it was much of the same between Warren Johnson and Greg Anderson, leaving Pro Stock Motorcycle with its own fair share of championship runaways between the likes of Matt and Andrew Hines, as well as Angel Sampey. Heading into 2006, the NHRA saw how well for the chase for the Cup format played out, leading to last race championship deciders and all-time ratings and attendance ties for the series they once chased as the most popular form of motorsports in the country. This year, however, it looked as if it would be that magical championship fight. While Jason Line held on to over 100-point lead in Pro Stock, the rest of the three classes found themselves in hotly contested points battles heading into the biggest race of the season. Little did anyone know heading into that weekend, however, that the news that would come out would once again shake the motorsports landscape.
Now, also, we want to talk about the countdown to the championship because this is how it's going to work. The first 17 events, 11 if you're a Pro Stock motorcycle contender, determine the top 8 in the championship finalists in each class. The standings are then adjusted with first place receiving 2,070 points with 10-point increments down to 2,000 for 8th place. And then those top 8 begin the countdown to the championship at the Nationals right here at Indy.
And then after that, the 4 events will determine the top 4 championship finalists in each class. We will then readjust. The standings will be adjusted once again from first place receiving 3,030 points down to 3,000 points. That's less than 2 rounds of racing between first and fourth. Then the final 2 events will determine the NHRA World Champion for each class.
What are the
Shirley, it's Gary Gerald up on the top end, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts about the announcement this week regarding the change in the way championship points are going to be tallied in a whole new era now for NHRA drag racing.
Well, I think everyone knows by now that I totally disagree with it. I don't like it. That's one reason I'm happy I'm not out there. I don't know if I could contend with that. But it really, the front runners, the people, the cars, the drivers that run really hard, work the hardest, win the most, I feel are at somewhat of a disadvantage when it comes to the middle of the pack drivers that will probably benefit by this. Only because, you know, just one iota of a miss, one strike and you're out. One dropped cylinder, one the tire smoking event, one red light can ruin your whole year. And it's just not the same. I think drag racing stands on its own. We don't have to emulate NASCAR or copy anyone else. Our sport is the most exciting form of motorsports. And when you run the quickest and the fastest and you win the most, then you should take the trophy home.
Shirley Madowney was with us in our first broadcast today, Big Daddy, and she did not like it at all. What's your thoughts?
I don't like it either, but I mean, you know, that's just my opinion. I guess they've done something similar over at NASCAR, so I guess it's not a new idea. And I think it's to create more excitement at the very end of the race to make sure that they don't have somebody that's a runaway. But, you know, from a competitor's point of view, I don't personally care for it.
The new points format would be called the Countdown to the Championship. Much like NASCAR's Chase for the Cup, the countdown would also see a points reset take place at the following year's U.S. Nationals. Only this time, instead of the top 10 being used, the NHRA would take the top 8 from each of the 4 pro categories, and rather than 10 races, the countdown would be decided in 6, with a special caveat just to make it unique. After the first 4 races of the new postseason, the championship fight would get cut down to only 4. Those top 4 would once again have their points reset for the final 2 races at Las Vegas and Pomona, and whoever was on top would be crowned that year's NHRA champions. The Countdown to the Championship is an inclusive program whereby more competitors will have a chance to win an NHRA Powerade World Championship than ever before. This historic change in our championship point structure will add more excitement and drama to the entire season, and magnify the spotlight during the season's final 6 races for fans and the entire racing community. Traditionally, prior to the final 6 races of the season, only a few teams still have had a shot at winning a Powerade World Championship. Under this new program, 8 teams in each of the professional categories will have a legitimate chance to win. As soon as the announcement was made, drivers were quick to criticize the new format. Some drivers were okay with the reset, but didn't like the idea of having a second reset with only 2 races left to decide the champion, but other very outspoken drivers hated the idea altogether. Actually, I haven't had a chance to really study it completely, but I'm sure it's a typical NHRA deal where they don't communicate with anyone but themselves. But from what I've seen and heard, it's pathetic. I just don't know, and until I look at it thoroughly, I really can't comment on it. Well, I think NHRA needs to make changes within our sport, and I think shaking up the point system is great. My only concern is the first 17 races of the year when you have guys competing for a top 10 position and then only 8 of them make it to the next stage of the game. That's probably a good idea in some ways because maybe it will bring some more excitement back into our sport. When you have situations where someone is running away with the points, which has been a situation in pro stock for the last few years, the fans kind of lose interest. But I do feel when you get down to the final 4 with 2 races left, there are too many variables at stake. The guys have worked hard all year, and let's say number 8 in the points ends up being in the top 4 because of luck. Maybe he had some of the top guys red light against him. Maybe the other guys broke. There are so many variables in our class where one mistake can determine whether or not you go to the next round or not. Number 8 can end up winning the championship and not really deserve it. I do like shuffling things and maybe having a showdown with the top 8 or top 10 or top 12 or whatever they want to do. But I think with going with 4 cars with 2 races left, there's just too much at stake for guys who might have had career years and don't make that final cut. What was the attitude during the PRO meeting? We took a vote and basically the membership didn't have too many problems with going to the final 8, but a lot of guys had a real problem with cutting it down to 4 cars with 2 races left. That seemed to be a general consensus. Were you consulted as a PRR board member, or was your opinion on this sought by anyone at the NHRA prior to this announcement? I'd rather not comment on that. I could live with 8 final points races. When it goes to 4, that's absolutely totally ludicrous, and that's all because NHRA is trying to personalize their point structure compared to what NASCAR has. They want to put their own little stamp on the thing, but unfortunately we don't have 499 laps to make up for an hour. The way that this is laid out, a guy can win a championship after he's in 8th place without ever winning a race, and when it boils down to 4, one team could win the whole thing. In the long run, I see this as being the demise of all the pro categories. This is what's going to happen to those guys that are just filling the fields and having fun with their race cars. But they're still part of the program because we need 16 cars out there. Those guys don't even have the illusion of ever winning a championship. It's not in the cards anymore. Those guys are just going to hang up their helmets. You're going to see Top Fueling Funny Car down to maybe 8 cars in 2 years. That's why NHRA figures only have 2 car owners out there with 4 cars in each. In Pro Stock, I can guarantee you that there will be 2 cars who aren't out here next year because of this. The guys that are quitting aren't going to be among the top 8 anyway, but the thing is that you could be the number 8 driver and not attend any of the year's remaining races and you're still going to be 8th in points. The car in 9th place can't move up no matter what he does. The only thing he can do is precipitate down, and when it gets down to the 4 cars and the guy in 5th can only hold on to that or move down, but he can't move down any further than 8th because those top 8 cars are going to be locked in. It's totally ludicrous thinking. It's typical NHRA small time thinking, and I'm giving them a lot of credit and letting them think. I think they can think, which obviously they can't. You mean the chase for the championship? I'd say I disagree with the change after 17 races, but we'll see how that is. But I do not agree with the change prior to Las Vegas, because only 4 cars will run for the championship and only have 2 races to do it in. Did you know about this in advance when you consulted as a PRO board member? No, I was not. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. I think it's more important what other people think, like the fans, the sponsors, and the media. I'm going to go into every race to try and win that race. If we have the best car in the pit area, I'm still going to win every week. To take all my points away and we start over, I'll win again. If you've got the best car in the block, it shouldn't make any difference. If the new system makes it more exciting and puts more fans in the stands and it doubles or triples the TV ratings and brings in more sponsors into our sport, then I think it's a great plan. Well, I think if you ask the guys to win the World Championship, they're not going to like it. Just common sense will tell you that. I've locked the title up in Reading and in Las Vegas early on. And I'd hate to win 15 races in a season and still have it come down to the point where you don't even have to win. You just have to average a little better than the next guy and we're going to call you the World Championship. I'm not sure that's right. Years ago, Ace McCulloch won 7 out of 9 races, but you had to go to Amarillo to win a World Championship, and Gene Snow won at Amarillo with Ace the runner-up, and he's not the World Champion? Haven't we proved it didn't work years ago? I guess it evens out for the rest of the guys. Overall, I guess the majority of the guys would like it, but for me, it ain't gonna help this Army team in any way, shape, or form. I think it's great if you're an idiot. I don't like it because it helps the big guys. If you don't have at least a $2 million budget, you'll never be in the top 8. Like I told Mr. Compton, you're telling me that if we go to the top 4 and Forrest qualifies first, Height qualifies 4th, that Height's not gonna lay down? If he doesn't, they're stupid because if he qualifies number 1, they'll give him 1 more point than the 2 Schumacher cars that might be in there. You could be runner-up and win the deal. Now it makes the whole team very important. The end of 2006 will mark the final season for the old points format, and unlike the series that possibly inspired the change, the old format went out in the best way possible. Heading into the final race in Pomona, you saw 3 championships still for grabs. Andrew Hines would defeat Antron Brown to capture his 3rd Pro Stock motorcycle title in a row. John Forrest beat his teammate Robert Height and Ron Capps to secure his 14th Funny Car title, and in one of the most famous championship deciders in history, Tony Schumacher beat Doug Coletta by breaking the national laps time record in the final round to win his 4th Top Fuel championship as well as his 3rd in a row. For anyone that was not a fan of the new system, this was the greatest example for why some things should never change. Heading into the 2007 countdown, the main point of contention in entering the new playoff system became the possibility of team orders. Much like what had been going on in Formula 1 with teams using their drivers as pawn to try and alter the potential outcome of a championship. The possibility of teammates taking a dive in order to secure one another championship became a point of contention as the series headed towards the countdown to 8. Heading in Indianapolis, Senior VP of Racing Operations Graham Light released this memo. To all NHRA professional teams, with the growth of the sport, NHRA has seen the development of multi-car teams in each of the 4 professional categories in the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. We know that every driver and team's mission is to win. With that said, NHRA does not condone or approve of any team not competing at the highest level as a result of team orders handed down to advance one driver over another driver at any national event. Actions of this nature are not in the best interest of the sport. NHRA Powerade Drag Racing provides the highest level of competition in the sport of drag racing worldwide. NHRA intends to provide and preserve a level playing field and require good sportsmanship from all participants. Team actions that do not meet the standard or that might negatively affect the integrity of the sport will not be tolerated. Such actions will be met with significant penalties that may include but are not limited to point deductions, fines, disqualifications, and suspension. We are confident that every participant in the NHRA Power Rage Drag Racing Series understands the unacceptable nature and severe consequences of such actions and respects the sport and the integrity of the competition. Many drivers questioned how the NHRA would be able to prove whether or not a team threw a race in the class such as Top Fuel or Funny Car, where smoking a tire is something that can happen at any moment. Gary Scelzi said he found the email quite comical and felt the NHRA hurt themselves sending that out. Whit Bazemore, who used to be teammates with Scelzi, said while the team orders weren't anything new, he didn't have any idea how the NHRA would be able to enforce it. Jim Head, on the other hand, was supportive of NHRA taking a stance on the issue. Let's create a situation. Let's say the 9th qualifier is another independent racer like I am, and I qualify 8th in Indy. What if I walk over to that low-budget privateer team with decals and money and tell them I want them to be my teammate and I get the desired result? You can't do that. If I do, then what's the point of the points chase? If teams are going to buy out others, what is the difference between one team being aligned for 24 hours or 24 months? It presents the same end result. I think it is one of the more positive moves they made in a long time. I think Graham recognized the problem and dealt with it rapidly, which to his credit, I see it as a huge problem in the NHRA. The end result of the first year of the countdown was everything the NHRA and the supporters of the countdown could have wanted. In Top Fuel entering the finals, Tony Schumacher entered 4th in the standings, trailing 67 points behind Rod Fuller. He would end up leaving with his 4th championship in a row, now making his total 5. In Funny Car, Tony Pedregon was a standout. Entering Pomona, he had already moused a 91-point lead over Gary Scelzi, making the event all but a coronation ceremony. In Pro Stock, Jack Hoffman entered 2nd, 34 points behind Greg Anderson, which surpassed Greg to win his 3rd Pro Stock title in his return to the class. And finally, in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Matt Smith entered 3rd, 51 points behind the winner of the past 3 championships, Andrew Hines. Matt Smith would overcome the odds, earning the countdown as the points leader and secure his 1st championship of his career. For 2008, the NHRA would make a change to the countdown of the championship, one which more reflected its older counterpart in the NASCAR Cup Series by taking away the points reset after 4 races, and even extending the amount of cars to 10 in each category. This format has remained relatively unchanged ever since. In 2009, the diving memo will be put to the test. During the cutoff race for the regular season at the US Nationals, John Force would meet his teammate Robert Hight in the semifinals. Hight entered that round with only 1 spot remaining in the top 10 in points for Funny Car between Robert Hight and defending champion Cruz Pedregon. Cruz Pedregon had lost to John Force round 2, meaning if Robert Hight won that semifinal matchup against John, then Robert would lock himself in, leaving Cruz on the sidelines. As soon as the matchup was official, alarm bells began ringing in people's heads that the fix was potentially in, making it even worse that John selected the right lane, which had only been won in 3 times up to that point. And whether it was by an act of God or if the fix was in fact in, John Force would fall asleep on the tree, drive to the wall, and smoke it down the track as Robert Hight would take the win, securing his spot in the postseason. And before John or Robert could even get out of the car, the accusations began flying.
Cruz Pedregon, the champion last year, now learns his fate. He will not be a part of the countdown to 10. We stood 5 feet apart, watched the same race. What's your take?
Well, there wasn't a person in the whole pit area that thought that wasn't going to happen. Force cheats. He manipulates the outcomes of these races, and he should be ashamed of himself. But I got to hand it to those guys. They stepped up, and we didn't. But NHRA should look a little harder at that. But Force has a history of doing that. So he did it with my brother for 8 years.
Pretty strong words.
Well, and I don't blame Cruz. I mean, it was still a different situation when Tony drove. It was both of them were Castle cars. It's a little bit easier to do that when it's the same sponsor. But I believe Cruz. I believe the fix was in. The fact that John took the right-hand lane. How often do you see him just drive that thing right to the wall? I mean, the left front's up, the right front's still on the ground. That car should not have made that move. And he was dead late. He had a 209 light. Robert just went out there. His 143. He was making sure he didn't red light. So, I mean, I think it looks obvious.
I'm going to lock the door in case John Force hears any of that. Look at that. He stayed in it, Mike.
He's still a showman. He's got to give the fans a show, but come on. I'd rather see a good reaction time myself.
I'm double locking the door.
Now, John, I want to ask you. Cruz said that you cheat, that you manipulate this sport. What's your take?
You want me to throw stuff at Cruz? I'm not going to play that game, or his brother, or anybody else. I race, and we do what we do. And I went out there, he had the quickest car of the weekend. I went after him, and I smoked the tires. But you know what? I can't lose either way, because I got the car in the countdown. And that's what Auto Club and Ford paid me for. So if that's his opinion, God bless him.
John, let me ask you about why did you select the right lane?
Because that's the lane that I ran the best down, Gerald. That's the lane that I think it was the left lane that I rattled first round and had to pedal it.
Just one in the right.
And actually just one in the right. So why do I want to go back to what I can't get down? Is there any more questions out there? I know it's coming from the 10, but God bless you. You gave a great show for the fans, and so did we. And we're moving on to the countdown. That's what Castrol, Ford, Auto Club, Brandsor, Samuel, Mac Tool, everybody, DePinto Brothers, they pay us to do, and Goodyear.
Thank you, John.
Is this one of these races that we're at least going to take a look at and maybe review?
Absolutely, we'll investigate the situation as we do in all cases like this, and the tech department looked at the car at the top end. But beyond that, we're going to, Dan Olson and his team and Glenn Gray are going to go over to the force pit, look at their computer printout tapes, look at the tune-up on the car, and see if there's something obvious. We don't approve of team manipulation, obviously, and we'll look into it. We've done that in the past with other teams.
How long did that process take, and what could the ultimate ramification be?
Well, the process probably take about 15 or 20 minutes.
You ought to be
Undertaking to look at a computer printout and just see what happened.
Ashamed of yourself.
No, you ought to be. My kid kicked your ass.
Am I saying anything that's not true?
My kid kicked
You tell me if you ain't gonna do that to me. Try talking to me like you've done to other people. Try doing it.
You think I'm afraid of you?
Try it.
I don't
Try it.
more.
Try it.
Yeah, you do the shit.
No, I knew you never tried that because you can't. You want me to say it to you? You want me to say it to you? Come on, I'll say it right to you. You want me to tell you the truth?
We apologize for the language. It's live coverage after all.
Don't screw up this.
This is the Mac Tools U.S. National, man. Emotions run high as it is, but wow.
You mouth and you embarrass yourself. Don't play that game with me. Your brother congratulated
Well, my brother ain't got nothing to do with this.
You won't do.
Hey, John, after 8 years, I think I'm entitled to say something.
That's right, with John Force. The NHRA officials have looked over all the data, John, and they have cleared you guys of any wrongdoing. Just your response to that.
Well, they don't bother me coming in here. That don't bother me a bit. We're in the heat of battle out here. What bothers me is people that talk behind your back, that go on the internet to say stuff, people that go on TV and say stuff, won't say it to your face, and then they walk by you in the staging lanes when they get beat, and they want to mutter it under the words, and you say, what? What did you say? Say it to me. Have a little spine, okay? So that's where I go on these issues, because you know what? I've had to listen to Schumacher talk about me and Tony Petragon, and I've just had enough. I'm standing up for my rights. These are my race teams. I do what I want to do. But to have to stand out there and be called names by him because my kid whipped his ass, he's been whipping her all year, and she finally gets down there once, and he can't even let us enjoy it. He's got to ruin it. I've had enough of him. He was my friend. He ain't my friend no more. Okay, he wants to fight. Let's see him fight this old man out on the racetrack, okay, because I taught him. And you know what? I've never said that I gave him compliments. Well, now he stepped on me, buddy, and he shouldn't have.
The moment would end up being one of the most infamous moments in the history of the sport. That moment would also end up helping decide the champion. When the countdown was first introduced, the idea of a driver entering in 8th place and winning that year's championship seemed impossible, as it had never been done before. Well, for 2009, Robert High would end up going from 10th to 1st to secure his first Funny Car title, becoming the first and currently only driver to achieve such a feat. 2020 would mark the last current change to the countdown, as now anyone who competes at all the national events their class competes in or runs at least 2 qualifying sessions now has a locked-in spot to the countdown, effectively making the cutoff to the countdown pointless except for very rare circumstances, something many drivers who rely on that rule still call a charity spot. In the 16 years that the countdown to the championship has been around, it has still been a hot point of contention not only amongst the fans, but the drivers as well. It's very common to still hear drivers voice their criticisms over the almost 2-decade-old points format that decided their champions. Many drivers who competed under the old full season points format have either already hung up their helmets or in the midst of planning their retirement as of this recording. Some drivers have come and gone only competing in the countdown, and now we are nearing the point where the driver battling for the championship are younger than the countdown itself. We've even gotten to the point where someone achieved the other unthinkable and swept the countdown to win a championship. You may be a full countdown supporter, or you feel that was the breaking point to stop watching, but at least we all might be able to agree on something. Thank God we don't use the damn playoffs. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and like and share the video. Be sure to comment down below so I know where to take this channel in the future for these videos. Also be sure to follow me on all social media pages down below at mynameMatt03 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as we get set for the 70th edition of the US Nationals. And until Indianapolis, this has been Mighty Mac, and I will see you next time.